Can I begin by asking you, to what extent does this $8 million that Labor has promised the ABC for Pacific Broadcasting, to what extent will that make a difference?
Well, look, I think it comes at a really crucial moment and it will make a significant difference. But having said that, it's not enough to really do the job. And really crucially, I think what we've been hearing so far in the announcements is talking about Australian content going to the region. And this is a much more complex situation than simply just opening the cupboard and sending some Australian content made for Australian audiences. Pacific leaders, Pacific grassroots organisations, media organisations have submitted to a number of Australian government and parliamentary inquiries, and they've all said they want public interest media and they want co-productions and partnerships so that their voice can be heard in Australia. They want a two-way conversation. And one of the problems, not just in media, but in foreign policy overall, is that Australia has for too long been talking to the region and not with the region.
So what measurable impact do you think Australian media presence has in the Pacific, particularly when it is in the form of, say, a co-pro?
Well, look, that will be really interesting to tell. I think it will make a really huge difference to the region if we get some co-pros. But I would say that, the ABC had a really bad period after 2014 when Tony Abbott, you might remember, cut the Australian network contract. That led to 60% of the funding for international services being lost, and in huge swathes of programming, all the bespoke English language programs other than news and current affairs on radio, all the bespoke news bulletins on television. So really it was a neutering of the service. The service still exists and the ABC has been working very hard to improve it and has actually been able to put in some new programs. So say in a place like Honiara, the ABC Australia, which is the renamed Australia network on the smaller scale, is reaching 35% of the population in Honiara monthly. So those are pretty good figures, I guess.
Do you think it makes a difference?
Well, look, I think it does make a difference. You can see that the refreshed efforts that the ABC have put into television, which does include some new programs, have created, say, in Honiara, the capital of the Solomon Islands, 35% of the population watching monthly. So those are pretty good figures. Mm-hmm. However, I think that what's really needed is the opportunity to have that quality public interest media that is at the heart of democracy. So prior to the Tony Abbott cuts in 2014, every single Pacific Island Forum country received bespoke services from Radio Australia, and radio is the primary means of, primary media in the Pacific. And so that allowed the debate to take place. What's needed now is for a 21st century town square, and obviously that needs multi-platform, so online debate, television and radio.
But is that level of, or that degree of soft power in that form capable, for example, of having, would it have been capable of stopping, Honiara being tempted to sign the agreement that it currently has signed with Beijing?
Well, I know soft power's a term that makes all journalists get a shiver up their spine because of the connotations of propaganda. I think the first thing is it's really important that it's independent media, and what you're doing is creating a conversation and ventilating the issues. So I don't think you could say it would be able to stop Honiara doing something, but certainly it could create the political environment where more people knew about the pros and cons of various different situations and more informed decisions can be made. And you do that as a friend. You don't want to see your friend blindly go the wrong way without warning them of some of the difficulties. I mean, the friend still obviously has the right to make up their own mind. But so clearly media does have a very big role to play. I noticed Scott Morrison actually today saying that he would send in the ADF where Labor's wanting to send in the ABC. I would have to say I would think that's a good thing. I mean, the pen is mightier than the sword, and one would hope that, conversation and the pen is used before you get to, going first for the police and the security solution.
So the $8 million that Labor is promising to help the ABC increase its presence, Does that feel to you like it's an Australia network all over again? Is it getting closer?
Well, look, it's not an Australia network because it would be $25 million a year if it was Australia network, and that was in 2014 dollars. So it's nowhere near enough, and more is needed in this environment. If you look at what other equivalent nations to Australia are spending on their international broadcasting, it's increasing, and it's vastly bigger, orders of magnitude bigger. So this has been an area that both in the past, both Labor and Liberal have neglected. But look, it will make a difference. Personally, I think another reason why co-productions are so very important in this context is that the Pacific media itself, the quality public interest media, is at a moment of existential threat, both from lost revenue due to COVID and due to digital disruption, but also due to pressures of media freedom. So these co-productions could assist the Pacific media to continue to exist as a democratic institution. And that too is very important. I guess the spin-off for Australians is that should there be these co-productions, there would be a much greater level of understanding, because we'd be getting amazing stories that we've never heard from the region. So it's quite a sophisticated and difficult environment, and there are many benefits from doing this well.
Thanks, Jemima.